What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Cleveland Pulse YouTube channel. I am your host, Justin Harold, and with me, as always, my co-host, Jeff Santa. Today is Victory Tuesday, the day after Halloween, Monday Night Football. Your Cleveland Browns won the football game last night against the Cincinnati Bengals. Jeff, we moved to a solid 3-5. We're now 11th in the conference. We have 2 divisional wins, 1 loss. And we're sitting at 2-4 in the conference in terms of win losses. Lots to talk about. I don't really want to talk about the actual game itself, but I do want to get into a lot of the stuff that we talked about beforehand. But before that, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. We got 3 points off rip. Number 1, somehow the Cincinnati Bengals are 0-3 in the AFC North. Don't ask me how that happened. Number 2, throw the record out the window. 3-5, 3-10, 5-3. We're alive. The season is somehow still live. Just look at it like that, because you're going into the bye week. It's a great morale boost for the fan base. But with that being said, finally, it takes you 8 weeks for your. I don't care how many points we scored. Yep. It takes you 8 weeks for you to be like, yes, the defense wins us a game.
Yep.
Finally.
Yep. Jeff, I mean, like I said, you talked about it in the very beginning of, or not the very beginning, but at some point when we were live yesterday, people needed to play, players needed to be great. Certain players needed to be great. I want you to go down the list. I know it's off the top of the head, maybe. Okay. I think you might have made a tweet about it, but
I did. Let's go off the tweet.
Yeah. Name me the players that were great last night.
Tell me who I'm missing. Tell me who I'm missing in the comments below after you hit the like button. Off the top of my head, Miles, and whatever, advanced analytics, pressures, get out of my face. I want to see the plays that make the difference in the ball game.
Yep.
Taki, and you know what? I don't think Taki is some sort of top 5 linebacker in the league. I've always thought he was serviceable, plays great last night. Emerson, what a draft pick. You know what? Will it pan out? Will he be a great cornerback his whole career next year going into the 3rd season? I don't know. But for right now, through 8 games, great pick by Andrew Berry somehow in the 3rd round. Chubb, as usual, known suspect. Hunt, as usual, known suspect. Brissett, great job overall. We're going to get to Brissett a little bit more. Great job. Cooper, the man loves playing at home for whatever reason. He has some sort of mental block on the road. And Bitonio, week in and week out, usual suspect.
Yes, absolutely. All those names, fantastic. Donovan Peoples-Jones had a pretty solid game. Probably not great as we're getting into, but
good enough.
Yeah, good enough. Taki. Let's talk about him a little bit. I've always kind of ripped on him, but there was very interesting that I believe after the game they interviewed him and he said it was interesting, or he said he doesn't get to play Mike linebacker a lot. He plays a lot of the outside linebacker, yes. Sam, Will, whatever you want to call it. And he played that in college. And I think that's why, he's been out there. He's been doing that. But if you look at him physically, he looks more of a middle linebacker than Jacob Phillips did and some of the guys that we've had before. And I think that should be an idea that they have moving on. They bring in Deion Jones, who – still figuring things out, but I think he's a little bit more serviceable as a outside linebacker than Taki might be. Might have to try to arrange some things there, but you're right. He's serviceable. He's not a top 5 linebacker, very serviceable, plays with a high energy. And I think at the middle linebacker position, you got to be able to play with high energy because you got to go and most times fill the gaps against offensive linemen and, take some big hits. Big credit to him. He had a great game.
He's the grinder, though. How was that 2 weeks ago? He said, play the guys who want to grind. And I always had this thing in my head that he could be a really good tackler. And that's what this defense misses from the linebacker position, is a really good, sure-handed tackler. And he was the energy guy last night. Every single play, even some plays I wasn't a huge fan of where they might have got 4 yards, looking at the sideline, hyping the sideline up in a good way. No taunting going on, none of this extracurricular stuff, all about the team, all about him, and all about the Browns. But you needed that performance with JOK being out in the injuries.
Jeff, I'm just looking over here, and this might be wrong because this is just a classic Google search of the game last night, but I'm going through the sack numbers. 1, 2, 2.5, 3.5, 5 total sacks last night.
If that's correct.
I feel if it's the Bengals. I feel like that's kind of a typical number to get, but a lot of pressure that came last night. Joe Woods, we've talked about it. 8 weeks into the season. Why is it got to be 8 weeks into the season that we got to get some solid, not even just player, I meant to say like great play from the players, but as well as schemes and also moving guys like who did they move inside last night that I thought did a serviceable job. We talked about Clowney moving inside, but they moved. I want to say it was either Isaiah Thomas or it was Alex Wright who they moved inside, and I thought was serviceable.
Yes.
Why did it take 8 weeks to do this?
So here's my thing with what I saw last night, and another kudos to, and it's an interesting season for Andrew Berry because it's like I'm seeing a lot of good, but I'm still seeing some stuff that could have been worked on in the offseason, which we've talked about. But Isaiah Thomas as a 7th rounder, we've already exceeded our value for that pick somehow. With he has a sack last night. He looks better every week. Hopefully it continues, but watching our defensive line last night against Cincinnati, and I feel like it always looks like this. We found pressure from unconventional ways toward the quarterback, bringing people around their offensive line to avoid what we talked about of the step up. We didn't, we got less pressure than you would think from the outside, and it was more, even if it was, in between the outside and the inside, it was still better than, okay, Miles and Clowney are pushing up and Burrow's taking 2 steps up and delivering a pass. It was like, okay, Miles on one side, Clowney's on the other side. And then, somebody from the interior, even if it was Taven Bryan on some plays, was coming around the inside of the line and getting to Joe Burrow. And it was working all night.
Yeah, it's interesting because the ends, they need to establish the one thing I always knew as a, high school player is your D ends. You never want to get too far upfield because it pushes the quarterback up.
Yep.
But obviously everyone saw the spin sack that Miles had. And that's a perfect, example of Jadeveon flies up the field, not necessarily flies up the field, but pushes his guy back and forces Joe to step up and right into Miles' spin sack. It's just like those things weren't happening earlier this year. They were just both flying up the field and just completely either missing or, not even getting close. It was tough to watch, but something clicked last night. But I know you said as one of your points, you got to throw the record out the window. But you look at our wins right now. You win against the Carolina Panthers, backup quarterback. You win against the Pittsburgh Steelers, primetime game, backup quarterback. You win against the Bengals, primetime game, but an elite quarterback. Is this a turning point, or is it just the Bengals that somehow we find a way to beat them every year now?
Well, it's just like if you're going to scheme, like if you're going to give us if you're going to present a one-dimensional offense to us, I think that you could see this week in and week out. I feel like Stefanski kind of has the Bengals number, and I feel like our defensive line always seems to play well against Burrow. We get very lucky that Jamar Chase is out, but if our it looks easy because our D line for the whole game never has to worry about the run. Mixon, I felt like there were plays I didn't even know he was out there unless he was catching a pass. It's like they never tried to establish the run. So we basically knew that it was going to be dropbacks from Burrow all game, and we knew that we could go all out and try to get him. Now, what makes me nervous in saying that is that if you look ahead to our schedule, and it could be different by the time we get there, the next team to me who kind of seems like that is Buffalo. Now, Josh Allen's a lot more mobile and could kill you with designed runs, but it's like if a team doesn't establish the run against us, they just have a much harder time moving the football. And you see some teams coming up who really are struggling to run the ball, whether it be Miami, whether it be, Fournette and Tampa Bay not looking great, whether it's been, the Bills offense is pretty much just like, oh, we're just not going to run the ball. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's going to kind of move us on to move us on to the next point, but I want to get into it because today was the trade deadline. lots of teams made moves. Surprisingly, a lot of teams made moves. The Dolphins on one side went out and got Bradley Chubb, and I believe they also got the running back from San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken.
Jeff Wilson.
Jeff Wilson, yes. So they went ahead and made a ton of moves to, bolster their team up. The Steelers traded Claypool to the Bears. I'm so upset about that because I'm a huge Justin Fields fan, of course, but now I gotta temper my expectations with that team. But the Browns, who were rumored to be shopping Kareem Hunt, hold on to him. Jeff, do you think the asking price was too high, and are you okay that we did not move on from him?
The asking price necessarily wasn't too high. It's just that we established it and we weren't going to move it. If he would have lost last night, he definitely would have been gone. But it's just like after a win and his performance, we're not going to move it because it's like there's still a small, 19, 20% sliver of hope this year, especially with your divisional standings. Like if we would have been like, let's say 0-3 in the division, let's say we weren't playing Cincinnati last night, we still won. You might be 0-3 in the division. Yeah, sure. Let's just ship them out. But they're probably like, okay, we'll take a fourth, anyway. And it's like, if we would have lost last night, maybe we would have took like a fifth or a sixth and went on with our lives. But I don't know. And it's like, we talked about this earlier. Why would you trade? I mean, he's going to walk. You might as well have somebody just pick him up and pay him next year. You're not going to trade him to Buffalo. You're not going to trade him to Miami. You're not going to trade him to somebody in the AFC who's competent. Sure, you could have maybe made a deal work with somebody in the NFC, but I'm not too upset about him staying on the roster.
I'm definitely not too upset about him staying on the roster. I think, hindsight will be 2020, but
sure,
I'm sure he'll walk next year or this offseason.
If anybody offers him better money than us, he will.
Yeah, and also I just don't think that it's realistic that we offer him anything because you look at it, we still retain Dearness Johnson. We still retain Jerome Ford. If you want to talk about Dearness Johnson, go for it. I'm not going to do it. You can do it in the comments. I think it's a missed shot. I think, man, it's hard to believe that some of the guys who like Claypool, a second rounder for Claypool, really?
That's what I'm saying. Like nobody wanted to give us a fourth. That would be my question.
The Rams
who asked?
The Rams didn't want to get Kareem Hunt for a fourth round pick.
Maybe they'd just rather pay him anyway. Just save your draft pick and then try to outbid somebody in the offseason.
Yeah, but the team stands put. It keeps everyone. No one's traded. Nothing happens. We didn't fire anyone because we did win.
We weren't firing anyone anyway. Like I hate to say it, but Prefer still should have been fired even though we won. Special teams still looks terrible. Cade York don't look great, fam. Sure, he makes a 55-yarder that we kind of like push under the rug where we kind of say like, oh, like we'll kind of forgive all the other stuff, but he doesn't even look good on extra points sometimes.
Yeah, it's tough. And you got to give it to him because the first one did get blocked, but man.
But that's somebody's fault, though, if it keeps happening.
Right. And you're absolutely right. I was trying to alleviate a little bit for Cade, but it's tough being a kicker in the National Football League, as we all know. But moving forward, we go into the bye week. You have momentum. You have – it might not seem like it, but you have quite a bit of momentum with this win because it is a divisional win. And like you said, Jeff, all you got to do is win through the division. You could maybe win through the conference and get the wild card. You probably don't want that, though. Moving forward, we talked about it in the pre-show last night. The Dolphins, the Bills, the Buccaneers. We both predicted a loss last night. We come out with a win. Do you still believe we can win another one of those 3 games?
Oh, yeah. I think we could win at least one, and you really need 2. So I don't know if we could win 2, but I love our chances regardless of Miami, how good they are. I just love any team's chances coming out of the bye week. Seems like an instant bump, and you kept the hope alive. You kept the locker room together going into the bye. You're in trouble if you give these guys 2 weeks to think about, us being 2-6. And do we really think Stefanski's the guy? Do we really think Joe Woods knows what he's doing? But it's like now the tides have kind of turned. you're still 3-5. It's not, like I told people last night on social media apps, we didn't move into first place in the conference winning last night. Let's still be real about the situation at hand.
Right.
But you're 1-0 this week. You beat a division rival, and
you get a long rest.
You go on with your life. You live to fight another day.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, I think that's a great ending point right there. Victory Tuesday, everyone. Hopefully you're all enjoying it. Hopefully you're not a little bit hungover from Halloween Monday, but it is what it is. If you guys made it this far, though, please make sure you're leaving a like, subscribing, leaving a comment down below. Let us know if you guys have faith restored, if you have that hope, that ever so little bit of hope that we're coming back. It's back. The Browns are back. But with that all being said, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.